Welcome back to the Monster Picker channel. The 1973 adult film classic, The Devil and Miss Jones. Look at this. Look at this beautiful big box VHS release from back in the day. I have the small Arrow Video VHS release of The Devil and Miss Jones, and I got the DVD. I mean, how cool is that? Look at this. Look at the adverts for the old adult films in the back here. It's got, let's see, Debbie Does Dallas, Girls on Fire. Look at that. So this is the 1973 film, Devil and Miss Jones, directed by the late great Gerard Damiano. He's done other classics: Deep Throat, Young Girls in Tight Jeans, and Let My Puppets Come. Now, I've seen a lot of those. I've seen Deep Throat a few times, but I've never seen Let My Puppets Come. Justine Jones, a spinster in her early 30s, takes her life not because of anything that happened to her, but rather because nothing ever happened to her. Each day a void, a nothingness, piled up on the nothingness of the day before. Confronted by the devil and faced with spending an eternity in hell, she imposes the hypothetical premise: if I had my life to live over, I would live a life filled, engulfed, consumed by lust. This sets in motion a series of erotic encounters that reach far beyond the range of human experiences, an in-depth study of sexual behavior that transcends the norm and blooms into a true form of erotic art. Now, I watched this earlier today so I could have it nice and fresh in my memory. That sounds pretty much right, you know, the summary there. The protagonist, the lead, is Georgina Spelvin, and it's an adult star from back in the day, the golden age of adult films. Directed by Gerard Damiano, he is considered, he's like the Seaman Spielberg of... Don't say it! This also stars the late Harry Reems, and it has Mark Stevens. You follow like classic adult films, these names will be familiar to you. So Georgina Spelvin plays Jennifer Jones. The movie begins with her conversation with some guy. It looks like they're in a cell or in a waiting room or something, and she's begging him to do certain things to him, and he's just kind of looking at her. He's not really interested. And then it goes to another shot of Jennifer Jones, played by Georgina Spelvin, looking out of her apartment window, just staring at the streets, and you can tell she's like depressed and bored. She fills the bathtub up, goes in there, and just slits her wrist. She commits suicide. So then the next scene is her talking to some dude. I don't know if he's supposed to be like Peter at the gates, or, you know, this is, you know, she's dead now and she's confused as to why she's there. And he says, well, you know, we have a situation here. I don't know what to do with you. You've been pretty much a good person all your life, but you committed suicide. So obviously you can't go to heaven. That's one of the biggest sins. And but you know, prior to that, you lived a pretty good life. She was depressed and bored, unmarried, and it turns out she'd never had sex. Never had sex. She makes a deal with him. She said, you know, if you let me go in limbo for a little while, I think it's limbo, or let me go back for a little while, I will come back of my own free will and accord. And he's like, well, I do have a little bit of time, so before I have to send you someplace else, which I'm assuming is hell or limbo, you know what, I'm gonna do this for you. But as soon as I call you back, you better be ready to go. There's no playing around. You gotta do this, you gotta go. So she goes back, goes, just go ahead and go through that door, and let's see what happens. What are you gonna do with your life? She goes, you know, I'm gonna live a life of lust. I'm gonna take this time and when I start over and just have sex and learn about sex and do all these things. One of the things I know you're interested in, you wanna know about the scenes in the film. The very first scene is the very first, you know what scene I'm talking about. Her is Georgina Spelvin with Harry Reems. and he explains that he's going to cure her inhibitions. To cure her inhibitions, and he does like some kind of Vulcan mind thing. He puts his hand on her head and tells her to bend over, and then he puts a plastic thing in her, woohoo, and he says, this is going to help you. And then she pleases him with her mouth, and he's going to teach her, and she begs him for other things too. Second scene is a lesbian scene with this girl. I'm telling you, she looks like she's a dead ringer for that female lead in Twilight. She looks just like the lead in Twilight, that girl, that pretty girl. When she's like walking out, I was kind of looking away for a second, and this giant hairy bush, I thought it was like Colin Kaepernick. I'm like, what happened here? I just saw this giant afro, but it's her between her legs. And she quickly sits on the bed with Georgina Spelvin, and it's a big lesbian scene. I gotta tell you, it was pretty hot. Monster Picker enjoyed that scene. Scene number 3. It's Georgina Spelvin. It's a solo scene in the bathtub. And she has like some kind of water hose, and she's doing things to her things, and I'm sure you can use your imagination. After that, it cuts back to the first scene with Harry Reems, where we never get the big climax, and there's the big oral climax there. So, good old lucky Harry Reems, huh? Fourth scene, it's a solo scene again with Georgina Spelvin, and this time she has fruits. And it's interesting, Damiano shows he makes sure we notice that she's biting the apple, the forbidden fruit, biting the apple. And she's playing with bananas and other things. The fifth scene. This is a pretty famous scene. People have talked about this, that have reviewed this film, and it's a scene with Georgina Spelvin and a snake. And she does things with the snake. She puts it all the way in her mouth, the head of the snake, and she's kissing it, she's licking its face, and very interesting scene. That's the fifth scene. The sixth scene, girl, guy. It's Georgina Spelvin, some other girl, and they're taking care of Mark Stevens. Mark Stevens is he was a regular in the 70s, and he was popular because he had a very long dong, and they do some real pleasing on him. He looked pretty excited and happy to be there. Seventh scene, 2 guys and Georgina Spelvin. And my battery's about to die in a second, so I have to switch batteries. I'll be right back. Okay, so where was I? I was on the seventh scene, 2 guys and on top of Georgina Spelvin, and this is another scene with Mark Stevens again. He's on the bottom, some other guys behind her, and she's on top of Mark Stevens. And after that, she goes back and talks to the original guy, who explains it's time. You're going to. She's like, do I have to do this? He's like, you have to do this. Take my hand. So then we see her. She ends up in this like some kind of like room, some blank like. I wasn't sure if it was like a sanitarium or I guess it's supposed to be limbo. And she's there with some guy who's crazy. This guy's crazy. He's talking about flies and stuff and how these flies are there. Nobody sees them, and he saw a speck of dust, and this guy is insane. And she's just sitting there. She's like, oh, please. She's begging him to make love to her. Well, not really make love, to do some dirty things to her while touching herself. And he couldn't be more indifferent. This guy's like, they're there. The fly's there. I'm telling you, it's there. And this guy's absolutely nuts. And so, she's going to spend the rest of her, not life, but the eternity, like, longing for those hot, steamy evenings and sex again, and it's never going to happen again. He couldn't be more indifferent and unattracted to her. And incidentally, that last scene is played by Gerard Damiano, the director. He's credited as Albert Cork. but it's Gerard Damiano. I looked it up. And so now's the big thing. Now's what you want to know. What did I like about this film? You know, everybody says, oh, it's so artsy. It's so artsy, and you know, it's got elements of horror, this and that. Well, I don't know about all that. I'd say, yeah, it's got a little bit of artsy. Definitely the filmography and the scenes and pacing are done very, very well. This is a golden age adult film classic. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I've heard people say, well, the sex scenes aren't really that exciting and this and that. I thought they were great. You know, Georgina Spelvin, she was, I think, 36 years old when she filmed this. I thought she looked great, and you know, her acting, she was a great actress. I mean, there's nothing not to like about this movie. But this is an adult film. You know, let's don't kid ourselves. This isn't, you know, some great work of art, you know, but it is, if one is interested, if you're interested in, you know, like classic adult films, you gotta watch this. This is one of the classics. This is, you know, definitely, you can't skip this one. So, on the scale of 1 to 5, what do I give The Devil in Miss Jones? 5 being the best. What do I give this film? You know, 1 to 5. I'm gonna give this movie a 5. I'm gonna give this movie 5 stars. I didn't fast forward. I watched the whole thing, and I thought look, what did I say? Seven adult scenes. You know, that's pretty good, and they were good. And they had a variety of girls. It wasn't just Georgina Spelvin. It had that Twilight turd look-alike, and maybe it was her mother. I don't even know that girl's name, but she's pretty, the pretty brunette. You know who I'm talking about. Had another girl in the film. I don't know her name. She too was attractive. Yeah, it's a good movie. Worth watching. 5 stars. The Devil in Miss Jones. If you haven't seen it, make sure you watch it. Good movie. Check it out. And that's it. I can't think of anything else. Minya. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.